Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to look at the total cryptocurrency market capitalization using logarithmic regression, and I'm using this model to show why I don't think we are anywhere close to a market cycle top right now. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. So we have a lot of models on the channel, and some of them show very different things than other ones. When we look at the regression band for Bitcoin, we know that we're approaching a peak regression band that we've discussed in the past. However, I've also mentioned many times that I actually don't really think we are approaching a market cycle top. And the reason why I don't think we're necessarily approaching a market cycle top is because if you look at the total cryptocurrency market capitalization, this is what this curve is. You might think this is just the price of Bitcoin. It's not. It's the total cryptocurrency market capitalization as a function of time. So it includes Bitcoin as well as every other coin under the sun. And what we have here is we have our red line, which is fit to all data. Okay, it's our fair value fit. We have our green dashed line on the bottom, which is more or less our lower bound each cycle. And then we have sort of a guiding upper band, which you can see the first one is well above it. The second one comes closer to the green one. And then the third one is right up at it. The reason I don't think we're at a market cycle peak is because imagine a future scenario where the price of Bitcoin, goes to some value maybe higher than it is now, but it doesn't extend too much further, and maybe the altcoin market doesn't go up several more $1 trillion. If we were to stop here and then turn back around, or even go up even more and then turn back around, I don't think we would look at this little bunny hill and call it a market cycle peak. It's more extended than this one is, but it's nowhere even close to being as extended as, say, this one was, which was an intra-cycle peak before a later peak that happened, okay? So at the end of the day, I don't exactly know what this market will bring. We've looked at comparisons between this cycle and 2 cycles ago before, so we have looked at that. And there are a lot of similarities between this cycle and 2 cycles ago, but because we are only this far extended now, this is why I do not think it is a market cycle peak yet. Now, what would make it a market cycle peak, theoretically speaking? Well, if the market capitalization were to trend up several more $1 trillion right now, or as of a couple days ago, we were at around 1.579 trillion. It's extended up since then. You can see this was fit on February 17th, so it's about 3 days old. If we were to scale up to say 5 trillion in the short term, 6 trillion in the short term, then maybe we could discuss the idea that it is an early market cycle peak. If that does not happen and we end up turning around at say 2 to 2.5 trillion, even if we just trend sideways for a while and come back to the line, or we come back down, I would not consider that to be a market cycle peak, because we would not look at this and say that this is necessarily a cycle peak. In the same manner that we look at the 2019 move and don't call this a cycle peak, and the same way we don't call this one a cycle peak, or this one a cycle peak, or this one. We can come above the red line and it's not always indicative of a cycle peak, but it doesn't mean it's not capable of a cycle peak. I don't think the market is as extended as it could be to be ultimately a market cycle peak. Now, there's no doubt about the idea that it is very extended in the short term, right? I mean, we've had a year now almost of just prices moving up with very little corrections. I would expect, if this is not the market cycle peak, some pretty hefty dumps in the next few months, okay? So I do not necessarily think we are imminently approaching the market cycle peak, but I feel like we could be imminently approaching fairly substantial corrections that will shake out a lot of new people to the space that have not really experienced what this cycle can ultimately bring. They're more so just, they've seen what's happened since March of 2020, and all they know is the market goes up. So what I think is, well, I mean, I feel like we'll have to watch it play out on the charts. Okay, so the two main scenarios are we trend up several more $trillion, which would be way above where we currently are, and it would likely take many, many more months to get there. And if that happens, then we might call it a market cycle peak. If, on the other hand, maybe we trend up another 10 or 20K and then we correct back down, it would not really extend that much further than this. This is a logarithmic scale, so to go up to say 2 to 3 trillion is going to take a lot of work. For Bitcoin, I mean, of course, it also includes the rest of the market. I don't know that I would consider that a market cycle peak. It could just be one of those local peaks like we had in 2013 before we calmed down and then later went on a much greater run. Okay, we had a 2019 move that came back down. Currently, we're trending up in 2021. We'll have to see exactly how high it takes us. Obviously, there's a lot of momentum right now, and there's a decent chance that at the very least, this move extends for several more weeks. Not financial advice. It could end tomorrow for all we know, but we know that momentum is hard to stop. But then once you do stop it, then market sentiment can change on a dime. So what I would say for those people who are confused as to where you think that I am, at least like where does my perception of the cycle currently stand, I would say I do not think we are at a market cycle peak. The way in which I could say that is if we were to trend up several trillion more dollars over the next few months. If that does not happen and we have, say, a correction back down where we drop back down, a few tens of thousands of dollars and kind of consolidate for a while, then I don't think it's a cycle peak. I think we're just looking at another bunny hill that happened to be a little bit higher than the last bunny hill we had in 2019. Another reason why I don't think it's a cycle peak is if you take the price and divide it by the red line, the fair value, you get something that looks like this. It's somewhat shifted because 100% is actually the fair value, which is at 1. So I did that so that we could capture the undervaluation, which would normally be if we were say doing this, it would taking the price and divide it by this, and it would actually be a fraction. But I just decided to show it like this so that we could see undervaluation as a percentage on a logarithmic scale. So anything at 100% is actually, it means the price and the fair value are the same. Okay, so you can see they were the same in late 2020. They were the same here. That's where it was equal to the fair value. This is why I don't consider this to be a market cycle peak. Okay, we're only, we're not even that far up this curve. If we were to look at where we currently are, and again, this is a couple days old, so it's going to be slightly shifted, but maybe we're up about 300%, which means 200% overvalued, which theoretically, according to this model, for it to be a market cycle peak, it would need to go all the way up to close to, say, 900% overvalued, or 800% overvalued, because remember, it shifted by 100%. So it would need to trend up several more 100%, the entire asset class, before it would reach what I would consider to be a market cycle peak. And you can see some similarities between this cycle and 2 cycles ago. We came down, up, down, up, down, blast off, first peak, correction, second peak. So we had down, up, capitulation, up. Maybe we're going to have a similar type move where we have a first peak, we cool back down for a while, and then maybe later on we have a second peak. But this is why I do not necessarily consider us right now to be anywhere close to a market cycle peak. That doesn't mean the prices can't dump 40 to 50%. When we talk about market cycle peaks, what I'm referring to would be generally like 70 to 90% dumps. 90% losses on a lot of altcoins would be likely in say market cycle peaks, 90% losses on most of them. And another thing that would be likely on a market cycle peak would be a 1 to 2 year bear market following it, and accumulation phase for another year or so. Because I don't imminently see a bear market happening that will last us well over a year and then another year to accumulation phase. This is why I don't necessarily think we're in a market peak or a market cycle peak right now. What I think will likely be the tail of this cycle is it's, a lot of institutional money coming in and then retail FOMOing in because of the institutional money. Then maybe things will cool down for a little bit until we hear of more institutional money, and then more retail will keep FOMOing in, and we'll just keep playing this little game for a while longer. So I hope this makes sense. In light of the last video where we were looking at the peak regression band for Bitcoin, you have to consider, well, first of all, we have not entered it yet. And even if we were to enter it, there is a lot of uncertainty on that. This one, there's a lot less uncertainty on because it's not according to 3 data points. It's literally taking everything into account. So what I would say is, even if we were to go into the peak regression band for Bitcoin, it does not mean we can't go above it. Remember, it's only fit to 3 data points. Or if we were to correct back down from it, it does not automatically mean we have to go back to the fair value regression band. It's possible we come back down and then go back up to the regression band later. Remember, every cycle can be characterized somewhat differently, and if we start thinking deterministically and exactly how things will happen, which I am guilty of myself sometimes, then it ultimately leaves you in a position where you're not doing yourself any favors. So I would say let's be flexible. Let's see where this market cycle takes us. If we're looking at this chart in 2 or 3 months and we're up here, then I'll be saying, okay, guys, I think we're at a cycle peak here. If, on the other hand, we cool off for a while, then we're just kicking the can down the road, and hopefully we can trend up more in the future. I hope this clears it up, and I hope this further explains why. I do think we'll have nice corrections along the way that will leave a lot of people, having these really, they'll basically realize that it's not as easy as they thought it was, and it'll likely turn a lot of stomachs. I think there will be dumps that do that during this cycle, but I don't think we are nearing a market cycle peak. So potential large corrections coming our way, but I don't think we're about to enter into something where we have, say, a 1 to 2 year downtrend followed by a 1 to 2 year accumulation phase. Okay, because this would be a completely different part of the cycle. I hope this makes sense. In light of the other videos, hopefully you can further understand where I'm coming from. Obviously, all the models we have are wrong. Some are useful. Again, I don't make any claims that any of them are going to be exactly correct, but at least they help us further understand the markets. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Check out the premium list altcoin season sale in the description below if you want to lock in the lower rate. Remember, we also have the Telegram alerts channel on there, the risk dashboard, the premium only live streams. We're actually going to have a live stream tomorrow, or today I should say, because by the time you see this video it'll be today. So if you want to start getting invited to the premium only live streams, make sure you check it out, and you get access to a few more things. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you next time. Bye.